Hey friends, welcome back to the show. We are so excited to be back with you today. We have something special that we're going to start off today with. Often, especially if you're one of our audio-only listeners on the podcast, you don't necessarily get to see the face behind the voice. So one thing that we think is really important is helping our listeners, helping our viewers get to know us. So today we're going to start off with a little segment. We don't really have a name for it necessarily, whether it's Meet the Ministers or what was it? Ministers in the office drinking coffee.
Drinking coffee only. I don't have coffee.
Only one of us has any coffee. Shout out to Level Coffee. I'm an old man. I
can't have any afternoon like that. So.
Hey, we can stay up all night and just keep recording podcasts. We'll just drink coffee all day. But we just have some rapid fire questions. We're going to introduce our co-host with us today, Mr. Michael Hollis. It is so good to be with you. So let's dive right into these rapid fire questions. And
I'll do my best.
As normal, just whatever the first thing is that comes to your mind.
Okay, go ahead.
Where were you born?
Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm a Louisiana boy.
What is your favorite sport?
Golf. How boring is that? Golf. Yeah.
Now, is golf one of those things that you only love to play or you only love to watch, or is there a combination in this one?
I think you only love to watch it if you play. And, I always thought golf, how can anybody watch golf? It's so boring. I start playing, and that's when you love it. Golf is hard.
Yes, it is.
Golf is
it makes my blood. It's been a very, very long time.
But you have?
I used to play the par 3 over in Chapin, and it just makes my blood pressure shoot up. Because I get really mad at the ball. My dad used to watch golf to go to sleep on Sunday afternoons. So I think that's kind of the way that it goes.
Sermons or sleep.
Exactly.
Sermons or golf. Either one. Well, I went to the President's Cup in Charlotte, and my wife and I did. Lane and I did.
Okay. Very
last
cool.
week.
Yeah.
And that was cool, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
And seeing those guys play, they played another level.
Yeah, 100%.
It is incredible the way they swing. They look like they swing so effortlessly, and it goes so far. It's amazing. I love watching golf, though. I know it's boring to most people, but I love golf.
Very cool. I love it. All right. What is one book other than the Bible that you think everyone should read?
Man, that is a tough question. And, I want to qualify it so much. I really do.
Of course.
But I'm going to say this, and simply because I think everybody ought to have a foundation for studying the Bible. And there's so many books, but I think Gordon Fee, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth.
Okay.
Especially if I were going to talk to somebody if they were a new Christian or didn't know much. I think that's the book I would recommend. I was so tempted to say C.S. Lewis and Mere Christianity, and there were a couple of others, but I think I'll go with Gordon Fee, How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth.
Okay, and we'll drop a link down in the description of this video or in the show notes of the podcast in case you want to pick that book up.
I get no money, by the way, for that. No
money. That's true. How many kids do you have?
I have two kids, and both of them are married.
Okay, so grandkids?
Seven
grandkids. Well, that's a good number.
And 3 here.
That's a good number. 7's a number of completeness. Do you think?
That's right. And it is complete.
It is complete.
According to my kids, it's complete.
Okay, look at that. We
just had one. They thought they weren't going to have another one, but they did. Surprises happen.
God's got a sense of humor that way. You better watch out sometimes.
That's right. 7 grandkids. Don't ask me to name them, please.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, let's imagine you have like a teleportation device, so travel time doesn't matter. Okay. If you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
I know you'd expect a preacher to say this, but I've never been. I'd like to go to the Holy Land.
That does sound cool.
I'd love to go, to the Holy Land. Jerusalem, the Middle East,
That'd be very cool. That'd be very cool. Yeah. Okay, speaking of trips, let's imagine you're taking a road trip.
All right.
And on this road trip, you're driving in a car. There can be 4 people in the car, yourself included.
Okay.
You can take any 3 people with you on this road trip, dead or alive. Who do you take with you?
All right, do you exclude Jesus?
I think Jesus is the cop-out answer, but let's assume that because Jesus is always with you,
okay, all right,
that he's already in the car.
All right. We'll assume that. Number 1, Paul.
Okay.
Got some questions.
Yeah.
And, Paul he's, I think the way Peter said, Paul's hard to understand sometimes. So
That's
I have some
true.
questions
very true.
for Paul.
Yep.
And C.S. Lewis.
Okay. I can get down with that.
There's another one I would take because I love his writings. He's got a brilliant mind. And I would have to take my wife.
That's a good call. I would recommend that.
She would enjoy it, and I'd love to have her. So that'd be a great car ride.
That'd be a lot of fun. Now, do you think she would have chosen C.S. Lewis or the Apostle Paul?
Man, who would she have chosen? Anybody dead or alive? I don't know. I have to ask her that question.
That'd be a fun question to find out from our spouses they would want to sit in the car with.
Might not be me.
She might not. You're not coming on the trip. I'm sorry. You didn't make the cut. Okay, so that's our semi-rapid fire questions. So now we can take a little bit more time with these next few. I have shared some of these with you, to the listeners. He's at least gotten to think about them a little bit. So we haven't caught him completely off guard here.
I appreciate that too. I'm old. I need to think about things.
Now, I'm the new guy around here. You are the seasoned veteran. How long have you been in ministry?
40 years.
40
years I've been in ministry.
How have you been in ministry for 40 years when you're only 42? I don't understand this concept.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll pay you later.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, 40 years. Hard to believe, man.
Now, how long have you been at Palmetto?
25 years.
25 years. I won't say.
And I'm the only minister Palmetto's ever had.
That's true.
Yeah, so they know no better.
Oh, wow.
That's what I always tell people. They don't know any better.
Oh, maybe that's job security there. Like, they don't know any better. So
that's right. I'm all they've ever had. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that. Years. Now, why did you get into ministry in the first place?
Wow. I mean, that's a good question. Since I was 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be in ministry. My brother was a preacher, my older brother. Okay. And I'm sure he influenced me as well. But I've always I love the church. I've loved being God's word. I had a minister growing up, Jim McDaniel. Hey, Jim, if you're listening to this podcast, I think he has before, but Jim McDaniel, huge influence in my life. One of the greatest preachers, men of God that I've ever known. Yeah. And so part of it was, I love Jim and wanted to be like Jim. And but really, I used to go when I was a teenager. My dad would find these little congregations around the area, and he would ask the minister when they were going on vacation, and they would schedule me to preach.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So I had 2 sermons. If they ever invited me back, I don't know what I would have done, but you preach Sunday morning, Sunday night. They never did. I don't know why, but I would preach around these little congregations. So I've been preaching for a long time.
Oh, that's very cool. I love that. Yeah. I love that. So there is no doubt that in our culture, it seems like there are a lot of misconceptions about ministers on a wide variety of things. So what is one misconception about ministers that you wish that you could get rid of, that you could undo?
Just one, and you did tell me about these ahead of time. So I thought
gave you a little bit of
answer would have been different originally. It was off the cuff.
Right.
But I do think one thing I would change as far as the perception about ministers is that, we're regular people. Yeah. I think that we, like anybody else, we have our struggles, that we don't wake up in the morning, quoting scripture and that everything's easy for us in terms of spirituality. Right. I think that we're just normal people. One thing I was going to say is that preachers only work on Sundays, and especially when I first started ministry, and people would say, "I know they were joking, I know they were kidding, but I just wanted to take them with me."
Let me show you.
Let me show you.
Of course,
what happens, but that's probably what I would say. I know this is not for you, but how about you? What would you say?
I kind of go along that same line. Like, I just want people to know that we're real. I want people to know that, like, we're not actually on this pedestal. We don't wear a suit and tie to sleep in. I don't actually wear a suit and tie like any time.
By the way, I knew a preacher that would mow the yard in a suit and tie. I really did. Years ago, he would mow, well, in a tie. Let me say that, in a tie. We had seen him mowing his yard in a tie before.
That's incredible. Like, I can't wear a tie, like, unless I have to. I cannot imagine. Tell me he didn't live in an incredibly hot environment. Like, tell me he's at least.
I mean, this was in Louisiana, so Louisiana is not
okay.
Louisiana, and it wasn't the minister I was studying about before, brother. He's another different minister.
That's crazy. But I mean, I think one of those big struggles is that people assume that ministers, that pastors, that leaders in church, that's just all they do. Yeah. Like that church is everything, and they're always on, they're always in like this spiritual mindset of all things. And while we're trying, we're followers of Jesus too. Like, we're normal followers of Jesus too. There are times when I'm not thinking about the Bible study. Yeah. There are times when I'm not planning worship services or trying to minister to people. Like, I'm just watching the football game. And in a lot of ways, that's just real life, and we just enjoy it alongside other people. But I just want people to know that we like normal stuff. We don't.
Yeah, I told somebody the other day I was a sci-fi fan, and they thought that was funny. They didn't realize a preacher could be a science fiction fan,
right? Yeah. Or you read Harry Potter or something like that. Like, how dare you do that? What in the world?
I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but
I've actually crazy. I've never read all of the books. I've never seen the movies. I've read 2 of the books, and everybody's like, "How did you?" And I'm like, I have them. I want to read them. I just haven't done it. So I hope that this is at least given our listeners and our viewers just a little glimpse into who you are, what you're interested in. I think this is one of those segments where we can kind of give them just a little bit of a glimpse into our lives. I know there's a lot of stuff that we haven't told them. I intentionally left out the what's one fun fact that nobody knows, those kinds of questions. I didn't ask about your diet. I didn't ask about things like that. What diet? But I think these kinds of moments are healthy so that people can actually know the people that they're listening to. And I think building those kinds of relationships with the people are really great. So
and I get to do this to you next week, right?
Yeah, that's true. So be kind.
Okay.
So if you have any questions for us, maybe you have a question for Mike, you can drop that in the comments of this video. You can send us a message. There will actually be a link in the show notes and in the description. If you'd like to submit a question for us to answer on the podcast, whether it's a Q&A style question, like a Ask Me Anything style question, or maybe it's a question about theology or about life or about the Bible.
Or about golf.
Golf. You would be answering that 100%. Mine would be like, how many golf clubs can you break in one session or something like that? I don't even know. But yeah, I think this is a fun little session for people to get to know us.
Kyle, can you believe that it's almost October?
When this podcast actually comes out, it will be October, which is insane. Like when we're recording this, it's September 29th.
I know.
It's hard to believe how fast this year has gone. And I feel like I say that every year. Yeah. It's like, can you believe it's already summer? Can you believe it's Christmas already? But really, like, we've been here at Palmetto for almost a year.
Yeah.
Almost exactly a year now.
That is hard to believe, yeah.
Which is really weird. Like you blink and time just flashes by.
Yeah.
But it's cool outside, partially because there's a hurricane coming in as we speak.
Yeah.
But like it starts to feel like fall, and I really love this
not even
time
getting
of
in
year.
the 80s next week. I'm excited.
No, I'm wearing, you can't see this on camera, but I'm wearing long pants.
Which he rarely wears.
I never wear long pants unless I'm like at church. So this is a very big deal. I'm wearing like a jacket too. It was chilly this morning when I walked outside.
That's right. So I've got a vest on.
Which I love. So I'm hoping that the cool weather sticks around when we have our fall festival and our trunk or treat.
I'm excited
and
about
everything
that.
At the end of the month.
Yeah.
So we got a pretty exciting event coming up here at our church here in Irmo. If you'd like more information about that, you can find that on our website.
Yeah.
But it's toward the end of the month, and it's a big. We call them fall festivals. And have you ever thought that it's interesting that we don't call it anything related to Halloween? It's always fall festival, like it's some kind of avoidance of Halloween. Do you think there's a reason for that? Do you think it's just coincidental that we do that?
No, I think it's purposeful. I think we call it fall festival because we want to, in a way, we want to disassociate ourselves with the word Halloween. I don't think we need to do that, but I think we do. You and I were talking not long ago about Halloween. Almost embarrassed to admit this, that when my kids were little, we decided, probably it's more me than my wife. We decided we weren't going to celebrate Halloween.
Okay.
I'd done some thought about it and some study on it. And I thought, maybe it's not right for a Christian to celebrate Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there can be darkness associated with it, witches and goblins and the devil and all that.
Yeah.
And so there was a period in time where, by the way, my kids to this day call me out on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My son Josh, who's now 38,
he
lives
funny.
He lives here in Columbia. I think that, by the way, that's one of the reasons why he celebrates Halloween up big.
Oh, does he?
Because when he was growing up, we didn't celebrate Halloween. So
right.
We would literally, by the way, I mean, it's embarrassing to say this. We'd go in our house and we would turn out the lights.
Like nobody come over here.
Don't come by our house. We didn't have anything. But I mean, I was doing that for my conscience.
100%. I get it.
I felt like it was not something that Christians should do. And I've since then changed my mind, about Halloween and redeeming it and what it means. I mean, have you ever had any hesitation about Halloween as a Christian?
Now, I'll say in short, no, not necessarily like, oh, should I as a Christian be celebrating this? But I will say Halloween is my least favorite holiday of the year.
Really? Why is that?
I don't like scary things.
Okay.
I don't like horror movies. I don't like haunted houses. I don't like,
down.
yeah,
don't
go
scare
ahead.
Kyle.
I don't like any of those things. So Halloween is just like the epitome of all of that. And I know it's fun with the kids and
scary movies. You wouldn't watch a scary movie then?
Absolutely not. The last scary, no, I've watched scary movies since then, but the most vivid memory that I have was me and a group of friends from high school went and saw Paranormal Activity 3. So this is dating me a little bit. It's like 2011, 2010 when this came out. Yeah. Whether or not we were actually supposed to be at that movie, I don't really know. I might be outing myself. But we go, and interestingly enough, all of the people in the movie theater were from my high school. We didn't plan it.
Oh, really?
There were 2 people in the theater that were not from our high school. It was a very strange experience. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting.
Were you on a date, or were you just
no? It was two of my buddies, just 2 of my dudes, and we're watching and we're screaming like little schoolgirls. It was terrible, and I didn't like it. And it was at nighttime, and you walk outside, and you're still a little scared. It's just not my thing. I watched a movie called The Strangers. Many years ago. I'm 28. Come on, but it's one of those like, it could really happen scary movies. And I think those are the worst, like stuff that like could legit, don't even put that in my radar. So let me bring that back around to Halloween. I think it's adorable when my kids dress up. I love eating all of their candy. This time of year, I get a little bit puffier because I eat all of the candy out of their candy buckets. Yeah. So that part is fine. I think it's more my distaste for scary things that has anything to do with my dislike for Halloween.
So it doesn't have anything to do with your theology. It has to do just with your personal,
And I knew people who didn't celebrate Halloween who were like, nope, we're not doing trick-or-treating. We're not doing any of those things. I mean, granted, like the church that I grew up in, I don't remember doing a trunk-or-treat for the first few years. Like I was probably a teenager until we did. But then
by the way, our goal is to have 50
cars,
250 for trunk or treat this year. And I know Lane and I, we're going to do the truck. We're going to do the truck.
I think we could do it. I think it's going to go 50. Big.
I mean, that's going to be great.
It'll be awesome. And I mean, there's going to be bounce houses and all kinds of stuff. It's a big deal. So
that's right. It's a big deal.
We're really excited about that. But yeah, Halloween's one of those things. I think there are a lot of people now, granted, there are guaranteed to be people in the comment section who are going to blast us on both sides.
Sure.
There will be folks who are going to say, hey, how dare you celebrate Halloween as a Christian? And they'll give you articles and all the things. So please, if you're on either side, if you're putting people on blast for either reason, please leave that out of the comment section. We are not interested in those kinds of conversations. We're interested in moving forward and growing. I say that to say, I would love to see more unity in that. In those places, as in any issue, I would love to see people who both can support Halloween and not support Halloween, not let it be a reason for fighting this time of year. It's just, we're close to election cycles. It's just not the time and the place. Enjoy the kids running around having a good time. Enjoy running up and down the streets with your friends, like all of those things.
That's right. Let the kids enjoy it. And part of what changed me is I began to realize when it came to, no, it's not just Halloween. There are other holidays as well. People always want to point back to some kind of pagan roots or pagan things that were celebrated.
Of course.
One of the things I love about Christianity is the ability to go into any culture and redeem parts of that culture.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? To turn it around and use it for God.
Absolutely.
And, we're taking, can you celebrate Halloween in a dark way?
Absolutely.
Of course you can.
Absolutely. But you can also celebrate any other holiday.
You can do that. You can do that. Christmas, you can celebrate in a dark way.
Absolutely.
There's some movies that come out pretty dark about Christmas, if you know that. So you can celebrate something in a dark way. But what I love about Christianity is God's ability. He not only redeems people, he redeems things.
Yeah, that's true.
He redeems our habits, our activities.
Yep.
And so we're taking something that could be dark, and we're turning it into a force for light and for good, bringing people together and getting kids together and even a chance for people not just to be together and enjoy some candy, but for people to get to know each other and who we are as a church.
Yep.
That's part of the reason we do this. We want our community to come and say, listen, if you don't have a faith family, then please check us out and see who we are.
Absolutely.
I mean, we won't give you candy every week. But
just occasionally. We do have really good bread every Sunday, though.
Yeah,
There's a couple in our church makes really good bread.
Yeah, we do.
You talk about God redeeming things, and it just reminds me of the cross, in that the cross was a murder weapon. It was an execution tool of the Roman government. Good point. And God used something like that to bring abundant life and eternal life to all people. I mean, if God can do that,
I love that illustration,
with the darkest of things, he can do that with anything.
That's right.
A holiday included.
That's right.
So
Amen.
I think that's just one of those moments where God can do anything. and we get to enjoy the benefits of that. So
And
enjoy
let me
all
say,
the beauty of
I
it.
do want to add to that. If your conscience, if it goes against your conscience, by all means,
Absolutely.
don't do it.
Absolutely.
And don't judge people either way. I mean, this is one of those. This is one of those Romans 14 things. This is one of those things where, you can eat the meat, not eat the meat, whatever it is. Don't judge one another for doing it. I'm at a different place now than I was, earlier on in my life.
Yeah.
But keep studying it. Always be open.
Absolutely.
Don't just think, hey, I've got the answer.
Yep.
Be those wineskins that Jesus talked about, ready to receive, new thoughts.
Absolutely.
When they come in.
As soon as you have convinced yourself that you have arrived at the place, you're probably further away than you ever thought you were.
Yeah.
And
right.
you have more to grow, more
that's
time.
when you really don't know anything.
Yeah.
When you think you know everything, that's when you know nothing.
Man, then there's a lot of times when I don't know anything at that point. Well, that's awesome. I'm actually excited about Halloween this year. We're in a new neighborhood. We moved down to South Carolina last year. So this is the first time we actually get to celebrate Halloween back in South Carolina, officially. Last year we technically did, but we were in limbo a little bit. This year it's where we're here at home and this is our place.
So is your neighborhood going to be a good place for the kids to trick or treat?
I think so. I really think so. Our neighborhood is a good size because it's not massive, but it's also not tiny either. Like you could make it through the entire neighborhood in a pretty reasonable amount of time. There's a lot of kids running up and down the roads. We'll probably end up with my folks in like my aunt and uncle's neighborhood because the people give out really good candy. Yeah. They give out like the full size candy bars.
You need to come to our street.
Hey,
we've got, by the way, one of the guys on our street has, it's literally, I think it's either 14 or 18 foot skeleton.
Oh yeah.
This thing is huge. My wife and I go out walking every morning. The first morning we walk by, I double take. Whoa, man, that's a huge skeleton. So anyway, just prepare your kids for that if they come.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. So we're looking forward to Halloween. Hope you guys are enjoying this season. Because this is us ramping up to the holiday season.
Yeah.
Because I was walking in Walmart last week, and I cannot believe this is the thing. I'm walking toward the lawn and garden center. I'm looking for a very particular item. And what do I see on the aisle walking outside but Halloween and Thanksgiving things, which is fine. It's almost that time of year. As soon as you walk into the lawn and garden section, it is full of Christmas.
Yeah. Costco,
everywhere. I'm like, guys, it's September.
Yeah.
Please let me enjoy my pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving before you dump in all of the Christmas. And that's coming from somebody who loves Christmas. Like that's my jam. It's my
Costco
time of year.
Had this huge Christmas tree. By the way, it's like $1,500 for this Christmas tree. It changes from white.
You won't have any more money to put the presents under the tree.
There's no Christmas tree worth $1,500 to me. I'm sorry.
Absolutely not.
But it's already out everywhere.
That's crazy. But we love it. It's a great time of year.
Yeah. Amen.
It's a great time of year.
Kyle, I think one of the things that's been on my heart, and I know it's been on yours too, because we've talked about it quite a bit, is why is the church struggling? And I say, not just Palmetto, I think churches across the nation sometimes struggle to reach the next generation. And kind of for the purposes of our talk here, we're going to define next generation as 35 and under. I know you can define that in a lot of different ways, but 35 and under, it seems like so many churches either can't keep or can't reach that age group. And we've been talking about that. Now, and I've kind of wondered, how much responsibility does the church bear for this?
Yeah.
How much responsibility maybe do parents? Of course, when we say parent, I know we're talking about 35-year-olds, so some are no longer in the house, but how you were raised,
of course,
sometimes has a lot to do with how you view church and your faith and everything else. So how much responsibility does the church have? Do parents have, and maybe also the individual themselves in terms of staying with the church, of not leaving the church? And so I just wonder your thoughts on that, because I know, being in youth ministry and raising kids too. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is an important, you talk about defining the next generation as 35 and under. And the reason I think we need to do that is because we have pretty hard numbers on a lot of studies. We'll include some links in the description below for studies that show it's skewed in the direction of 35 and under, millennial and Gen Z are responding more saying, I'm unaffiliated. I'm not, I'm one of the nuns, as Barna would refer to it. Yeah. You see it in older generations, but not nearly at the rate that you do with millennial and Gen Z. Now, Gen Z has given us some hope because they seem to have a little bit of a different perspective, but there still are a growing number of people who want nothing to do with church. for one reason or another. And as somebody who works with that younger generation, I always am trying to figure out, man, what role do I play as a minister? What role do I play as a leader for them in trying to help them make these kinds of connections?
You kind of feel that burden,
Most of the people who are in our church have been raised in church. Yeah. Most of them. We have a lot of people in our church who have come from an unchurched situation into the situation they are now.
We have that,
but most of the kids that I work with every day have been in church since they were babies.
Yeah.
So I recognize that they are in a little bit of a different place. And yet, I think when you start to think about family of origin, parents, their family situation, when you think about the church and you think about the individual, I think it's really a three-legged stool. I think each one of those holds equal weight. Because imagine you have really solid family life. You've really solid family life and you have really solid church life. Well, there are just some kids who aren't going to connect with church.
That's right.
For whatever reason. You can have 2 or 3 kids in the same household who respond to church differently.
I mean, God's first 2 kids rebelled, so you can be the best.
True.
Yeah, you can be the.
That's very true. That's good news for somebody watching. I know.
Right.
Now you could also have a golden child and a golden family, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get plugged into church.
Yeah.
Maybe it's based on their past experiences. Maybe it's based off some bad things that they saw in the church. So there are a lot of factors that go into this.
Sure.
And you and I have both tried to have conversations with people in this generation, 35 and under, over the past few days to try to wrestle with, hey, what are you seeing?
Yes.
What are you noticing about your friends, about the people you interact with, maybe even you yourself, on why the church is struggling to reach y'all? Now, I think, once again, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I think everybody's going to have a different reason. For some people, it's going to be the worship styles. For some people, it's going to be broken church leaders who make mistakes and make us lose hope for the future. For some people, it's just, man, I wasn't raised in it, so it's just not the way that I see the world. But I feel like the church has to be willing to step into hard conversations. I was having a conversation with my friend the other day about this exact thing. And I just asked, I said, hey, why do you think the church isn't doing a very good job? And he said, well, part of it is language. We often use inside baseball kind of language to talk about things, or we choose not to talk about things at all. We could have, if you look back over the past couple of years, the church has really struggled to have political conversations, to have conversations centered around race, to have conversations centered around marriage and gender.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure if it's because we don't know what we believe, or maybe we just have a really hard time of connecting with the people who believe differently than we do. Now, I think it's really important to have opinions, to have passionate opinions and beliefs on certain things.
Yeah.
But it's equally as important to be willing to engage in conversation with people who disagree with you.
Yeah. And there's a fear there of doing that.
And I think part of that fear may be that we're not going to reach the person, or maybe they're going to try to convince us of something that we don't ourselves already believe, keeps us from being willing to engage with those people. Yeah. And in the process, they never get to hear the good news of Jesus. They never get the opportunity to come in contact with him and see how he brings more abundant life than anything else that we could come up with. So I think about all of the various things, and it's one of those moments where we can get hung up feeling like we have a lot of decision fatigue. Like, well, which one of these things? Is it worship styles? Is it engaging community groups? Is it we need to have better, deeper conversations with people? Is it we need to do this, that, or the other? And we end up doing nothing. We end up just sitting back and saying, because I don't know what to do in this moment, I'm going to do nothing.
Yeah.
But the problem that comes with that is the next generation sees that.
Yeah.
And they will find another organization. They will find another party, political party, group, another religion that does answer those questions, that is willing. This is why you have a ton of people who are not affiliated with church in any way, shape, or form. And yet they will get so hardcore plugged in on social issues. They will get so hardcore plugged in on being a part of a Peace Corps and making a difference around the world and helping people and doing good. And yet, because they didn't see the church model it well, because they didn't see Christians model it well, they decided they wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah, everybody wants a higher purpose for their life. I mean, we're built to, in that way, being imagers of God. You know, we want a higher purpose. We're going to find it somewhere. People are going to worship. They're going to be religious, for lack of a better term, in some way in their life. And so often they don't choose the church because they see. I was having a conversation with a couple just today, a couple under 35, just a couple I love, sweet. And I asked them, why do you think we are oftentimes losing the generation 35 and under? What do you think? And I know one of the first answers they gave me was that there's been a shift in our culture, as we know, in the past 10 or 20 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And some of the key things that are talked about in the younger generation is acceptance. Acceptance is a word, being accepted, having safe spaces. You hear people talk about, and oftentimes young people feel like outside of the church is a place where you're accepted, where you feel safe. But they said that often in the church they didn't feel like it was a place where people could be accepted. Where they could be just taken for who they are, but they would be judged. They felt it was a very judgmental place. And I know this is not just this generation. There have been people in the past who have thought church people are judgy. That's been throughout time. Of course. But especially in this environment, when you talk about all the issues that are going on right now, some of you have already touched on, people want to know, where does the church stand? If I'm struggling with this, do I have a place to even go? Are you going to hear me? Are we going to talk about this? Are you just going to remain silent? And by your silence, oftentimes they believe that means condemnation.
That's very true.
And they're not going to take silence as simply acceptance. They want us to be talking about these things. And I'll tell you, as a communicator, and I know you as well, I struggle with how to talk about these things in a way that, in a Jesus way. Absolutely. That reflects his image as who we should be. Because I believe Jesus ought to guide us in how we talk to people who may think differently, look differently, act differently, who may not be, in some instances, the holy people that God calls them to be. And all of us, by the way, struggle with that. But how do we interact with them in a way that lets them know that they are loved and that, like all of us, have a ways to go?
I think the key to this whole thing is being willing to sit at a table and have conversations with people who might disagree. And be willing to come down at different places.
And be willing to learn. I'm 61 years old, and I would say in the past 10 years, I have learned more than I did in the previous 50. And part of it for me has been an openness and willingness to say, okay, to look at anything I've ever believed and to say, if it is truth, I have nothing to fear. I can be open to listening and learning and growing. And until the church as a whole, till we all adopt that kind of attitude, there are times when I'm not as open as I should be. I go back sometimes to my roots of being not that way. But sit down and talk about this. I think even the couple I talked with today, just the fact of asking them that question and talking to them. And these are two young people I love so much. Just asking them that, I could tell that it meant something to them to hear them out. And to say, we need to listen to you.
That's a really good point. Because when I was talking to my students last night, a lot of what they kept coming back to when I asked them, why do you think the church isn't doing a good job of reaching this generation? They talked about how they want to have a place. They want to have a voice. They want to know that they're heard, that they have influence. Because we tell them all the time, like, hey, you're the new church leaders. Fast forward 20 years, and this is going to be you. You're going to be in our shoes. We need to treat them that way now. We need to make sure that everybody knows that they do have a place there, that they do have a place to talk and to share and to be safe and to know that you're loved regardless of what decisions you make. Like, that's what church is intended to be to begin with. But some of our actions in the past have left us not doing that well. I'll say one thing you talk about over the past 10 years or so, you have done a lot of learning yourself and trying to rethink a lot of things. I'll say you're 61, I'm 28. So I'm not going to try to do the math because that's hard.
It's a big age difference.
Math is crazy. But one thing that I have appreciated so much just in the year that I've been here is your willingness to learn from me. As a 28-year-old, punk kid most of the time. Like, you're willing to sit down at a table with me in a podcast and have theological conversations.
Yeah.
We sat down for like an hour earlier recording videos and talking about, man, how can we be better ministers? How can we minister not just to the younger generation, but to the older generation, and giving me space to have an equal footing at the table. Like, that makes me know that you love me and you are willing to help me along in my path as I'm also trying to do the same thing for you.
Yeah.
And like, that inspires me. That makes me actually want to be a part of this team and part of this church and everything else. I think we need to do the same thing for all people 35 and under, all people in general, but especially those who are longing for that. Because it's really easy to say, hey, you're young, your time will come, like, it's okay. No, let's help them know right now.
Because see, part of it is remembering when I was 28. Part of it's remembering when I was
Right.
In youth ministry, you know, when I began. By the way, you're much further advanced than I was at 28 years old. I have to say, you're much further along than I was. But part of it is remembering what it was like for me,
Right.
and having some come along and mentor me. But how I really always wanted to be seen, not as somebody. I want to be seen as a partner,
Right.
And I think that's what we are in ministry. And one of the things that I think is said over and over is they have to feel ownership. They have to feel that they have a part in, even in decisions that are made within the church.
Absolutely.
In terms of ministry. Don't just give them a ministry that is a throw-off ministry. Hey, we've got nobody to do this. Why don't we get one of the teens to do it? I mean, I remember as a youth minister, they used to throw some things, the teens just saying, the teens will do it. Let's let them take care of it, But you want to give them something they're gifted to do, they're talented to do, so that they grow up feeling like they are a part of the body.
Yep.
That we know their hand, their arm, whatever part they might play in the body of Christ, so that they know if they ever detach from the body, if they leave the body, number one, they're going to feel it.
Yep.
And number two, the church is going to feel it.
That's right.
And so I'm afraid that many times they just feel like they're on the ride along.
Yeah, that's true.
That they're not really a part.
Yep.
And I have to, some of the things we've talked about outside of this podcast have made me examine myself and say, man, some things I've forgotten back when I was youth minister and the way I used to teach and do, and I've gotten away from some of that I need to get back to, so that the young people realize this is about you as well. We want you to see how Jesus, because you said this to me today, and it's stuck with me, how that they need to know how Jesus plays out in their everyday life.
Yeah.
They need to know what it's like to be a follower of Christ. You said if you're playing football, or if you're in the classroom, or if you're at the movies with your friends, they need to know what literal difference Jesus makes in their life at that moment. I love that. It stuck with me.
Yep. I think that's the thing that has been my guiding light over the past bit when I've been trying to think about how I do ministry and how I help these kids grow. Because I want faith to matter to them just as much on a Tuesday morning or Thursday afternoon as it does Sunday at 10:45 when we come together for worship. So we're not going to solve every problem. But next week, we're going to try to do a little bit of that. So this week has been a little bit of wrestling, like, man, why is the church struggling so much? Why does it seem like we always are a step behind? But next week in our conversation, we're going to try to come to some solutions. Maybe not all of the solutions, but we're going to try to brainstorm some ways that we can actively make a difference. We can actively take a step toward inviting the next generation in and involving them in what God is doing here and in the church at large.
And by the way, I'd love to hear some thoughts of people who are watching this.
Absolutely.
Let us know.
Absolutely.
Comment on how you think the church can do a better job.
That's a really great thing. We'd love to hear from you this week. We look forward to being with you next week, both on this podcast and in all of the places that we're posting content on our YouTube channel, on our social media, especially on Instagram. Go ahead and give us a follow. It really does help us if you would click this like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. We look forward to taking another step in the journey with you. Hope you have an amazing day. Grace and peace, my friends.
God bless.